name is Justin Brown. I am case manager for Witch's Correctional Institution. I was just given this tax a few weeks ago, so it took us a miracle to get everything put together, but we had a lot of support for ODRC to help us to get this going. So I definitely want to appreciate staff and Ms. Mason, who was a big part in getting this all set up. Like I said, we have Indiana University on our left, and then we got the Liberation Aloud on our right. We're going to introduce Jenny.
We have a ladies and gentlemen, all the folks joining from home and around the world, the latest iteration of the National Prison Debate League. We're in for a treat today. We got the Hoosiers and we got Liberation Aloud. This is part 2, and we're very excited. We're live from Mansfield, Ohio today. And this, everyone, is what decarcerating minds in action looks like. So we hope you take notes, and you're in for a heck of a policy debate to boot. So here to lead you through today's program is our illustrious moderator. She also is one of our NPDL volunteer coaches. She debated at the University of Miami, and she is going to be your debate moderator today. She's got to through this amazing event. So please give a warm welcome to Ms. Leia Castaneda.
We can't hear the speakers, Dan.
Yeah, that was strange, John. It was, we could hear for a while and then it cut out.
We can't hear anything.
It should be on their TV. That's what we had, unless it cut out.
Oh, you have the microphone there. But you want it on here, doesn't it?
No.
The Logitech stream cam?
It would be on this one, yeah.
But the microphone, where's the microphone?
Yeah.
It'd be on here.
But the Logitech also picks up.
Yep.
So you'd rather have the
Yep.
microphone up there, right? Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I changed it.
No, so you want.
Okay, try it again.
Hello?
Can you hear us, John?
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you, Johnny.
Okay,
So should I start again?
yeah, we're gonna edit that right out.
Okay.
Proceed.
Okay. Good afternoon, friends, supporters, and honored guests. You are all about to witness an unforgettable display of both intellectual ability and social diplomacy in action as our 2 amazing teams from Indiana University and Liberation Aloud from Ohio County for a faulty debate on the following topic. The resolution of today's debate is the U.S. should require the automatic sealing of criminal records for all offenders except for those convicted of violent sex crimes. The incarcerated intellectuals for Liberation Aloud team from Ohio will argue in the affirmative supporting this resolution, while the Hoosiers of the University of Indiana will argue in the negative position refuting the affirmative case. Each debater will be judged upon the following criteria: analysis, reasoning, evidence, organization, refutation, and delivery. The 3 very distinguished judges of today's debate are Gordon Mitchell, Chief Judge, former Director of Debate at the University of Pittsburgh, and former top speaker at the National Debate Tournament while debating at Ford Northwestern University. Then we have Jefferson Mahone, debate coach at the University of Rochester. And lastly, we have Joseph Patton, Director of Debate at Montana University. Coaching our 2 debate teams are Brian DeLong, the Director of Debate at the University of Indiana University. And then we also have Patrick Waldinger, Director of Debate at the University of Miami and President of the American Debate Association. As today's moderator, I will introduce our debaters individually, and they will all adhere to their specified timelines. A digital timer will be displayed on screen, and speakers' microphones will be muted if they exceed their time limits. At the conclusion of the debate, our judges will tally up each team's cumulative total points to determine the winner of today's debate. I've had the immense pleasure of helping coach Liberation Aloud, and how far they've come has been so incredibly inspiring. I can't wait for everyone to see all the work and dedication they put in. With all this being said, it's now time to expand our minds and start this debate. Presenting the affirmative team's first constructor is Jamal Dantes Hatcher.
Status quo of mass incarceration and collateral sanctions are not conducive to public safety in America. According to the U.S. Department of Justice, we currently have a 71% recidivism rate, while other developed countries such as Canada and Norway have recidivism rates as low as 40%. They achieve this because their justice system is geared towards rehabilitation and not retribution. They understand common sense. They understand that if you back a cat into a corner and you block all routes of escape, that cat would use his teeth and his claws as a means of escape. So when our community members are trying to re-enter society, but society intentionally sets up barriers to reintegration at every turn, backing them into a corner, people are more likely to use their teeth and their claws. And that corner looks like after living for years behind barriers and bars and fences that keep you separated from your children, only to have them replaced with housing sanctions that keep you from creating a home with your children. It looks like attaining job skills in prison, only to come home to discover that you can't even get a job in that same field. And we have to understand that accountability and retribution are not the same thing. People can be held responsible or accountable without facing the permanent punishments of collateral sanctions. And we have to do away with this narrative that easing these sanctions is somehow allowing people to skirt accountability, because the 5, 10, 15-year sentence a person just did is accountability. And according to the National Inventory of Collateral Consequences of Conviction, after a person has served their prison sentence, a second sentence begins that imposes a wide range of restrictions on various rights, benefits, and opportunities collectively referred to as collateral sanctions. In other words, a criminal conviction in this country is a lifetime sentence for those of us who have been in prison, or for those of us who have simply paid a fine. And as long as these roadblocks are in place, our justice system is actually one of retribution and not rehabilitation, as it claims. See, during my incarceration, I found a multiple program, including this debate program. I have apprenticeships, I have vocational trainings, I even have a college degree in which I graduated magna cum laude. I should be set for successful reintegration. But when I leave this prison here in a few months, in the state of Ohio, I will be homeless. And my grandmother would take me in, and she just fell and busted her head on the edge of the coffee table every day. She had to get 9 stitches. She could use me there, but I can't go. Because since I have a criminal record, Section 8 will kick her off of her assistance if I was to move in. Now think about that. My own grandmother could never take me in unless we move up economically. We have been penalized for our poverty. And doesn't make my community safer that I lost another woman's season. Doesn't make my community safer that I not only have to overcome barriers to employment, but I also can't get a warm bed at night. And I have to scrape and save every small amount of money I'm able to make to hopefully be able to keep a roof over my head in the wind. Most collateral sanctions like this are permanent, and it doesn't matter how long I've gone without reoffense. And there's people around this country who are forced into similar situations every single day. And I just want everybody to be honest. If you wanted an appointment but couldn't get a livable wage, on top of being forced into homelessness, could you see those such people? Could you see those such people do anything to stop sleeping in a homeless shelter or on somebody's steps every day? Freeze. Could you see those such want to use your teeth and your claw? And if you do, would it make your community safe? No, because the harm that you do will be in your community. So in essence, the community suffers when reintegration is hindered by collateral sanctions. And this is why the affirmative team believes that the U.S. should require the automatic sealing of criminal records for all offenders, except for those convicted of violent sex crimes. We propose that once a person is either going 2 years for misdemeanors or 5 years for felony, the third reoffense, that their records would be automatically sealed. And this is needed because people having a record sealed as part of a robust immigration effort would eliminate many of the collateral sanctions that impede a person's ability to gain meaningful employment and have adequate housing. The thing we have to understand about collateral sanctions is this, that these things are blanketed, extrajudicial punishments that are forms of legal discrimination akin to the Black Codes of the Jim Crow South. The only difference is that the Black Codes are based on race and collateral sanctions are based on the criminal record. Redlining, for example, these were limits placed on housing that determine where Black people could and could not raise their families based on race. And collateral sanctions determines where people can and cannot raise their families based on the criminal record. It's a slightly different method, but it's the same result. It is housing discrimination. Now we know that race still plays a role in who is more likely to receive that criminal record. According to the Bureau of Justice and Statistics, Blacks make up 12% of the US population, but makes up 40% of the prison population. And this is because Blacks are disproportionately charged, arrested, and convicted of crime. And thus our communities are disproportionately affected by this second-class citizenship that is a result of collateral sanctions. And I could talk ad nauseum about the disparity on the front end, but we also have to talk about the disparity on the back end, which is the record-setting process itself. According to the National Institute of Justice, disparities in the sealing of record, also known as expungement, refer to the unequal access for the process of removing criminal records from public view, often stemming from factors like race, socioeconomic status, and complexity of legal procedures. So the only logical way to eliminate this is to make the sealing of records automatic after a person has not offended for an allotted amount of time. And people having their record sealed as part of a robust reintegration effort would benefit our country. But the reason we don't have robust reintegration efforts in America is because it's not in the benefit of corporations who make billions of dollars off the high crime and high recidivist rates. And to make matters worse, these same corporations depend on government contracts and make political contributions, which means they can buy influence with our elected officials. And I'm talking about corporations like Core Civics, who according to MollyFood.com generates 37% of their revenue from contracts with state and local governments. They profit at the expense of our communities. But right here, right now, with the passing of this resolution, we can take the power from some of these corporations and the government officials who are component to them, and we can put it where it belongs, and that's in the hands of the people. You see, to these prison puppeteers, our loved ones are just members on the board. But in reality, these are our sons and daughters, our mothers and fathers, our brothers and sisters, and we are the ones who should have a say. Not the people who don't even live in our communities, pay taxes that benefit our communities, probably never even driven through our communities, all they ever done was line their pockets with our pain. And it is a 2018 policy numbers study that says that 1 in every 11 Ohioans have a criminal record, and that we have a 32% recidivism rate after 3 years. But could you imagine how our local economies would thrive if those same people were able to attain employment, spend money to boost our local economy, and pay taxes? You can't tell me that wouldn't be a hell of a lot better than those same people returning to prison on the taxpayers' dime, making $18 a month, which helps to keep our sons and our daughters in a cycle of poverty, which leads to them standing here 20 years from now having the same conversation, all because the tools and the infrastructure of our criminal justice system only offers lip service to public safety. You see, perpetual punishment is not public safety, it's not in our community's interest, and it is not justice. Justice, in its purest form, is meant to restore community. It is meant to bring healing and restoration to those who have been harmed and those who have done harm. So if crime is a wound that's inflicted upon a community, I'm here to tell you that if you get cut, you do not stitch up half of a wound, Malcolm X. So I need people to understand the urgency. I need you to understand that, according to the Bureau of Justice Statistics, that 95% of people who are incarcerated are one day coming home. That is over 600,000 people each year coming home to barriers. And we can't ignore that Black, brown, and impoverished communities are the most affected by these barriers. But these barriers are not inevitable. These barriers are not just the way it is. These barriers are policy choices. People make a choice to place these barriers here, and what we left with is a status quo that perpetuates violence and crime in lower-income neighborhoods. The judges, this is why we're asking you to make a choice for something different, a choice for something new, and a choice to put rehabilitation over retribution. And I'm gonna end with a quote from the late great Tupac Shakur. He said that we seen the old way wasn't working, so it's on us to make a new one. Judges, Let's make a new one.
Providing cross-examination for the negative team for 1 to 3 minutes is Sai Vishnu Shri, Paramai minute 30. I'll start with your first question. So your plan, are you just expanding like the state's Clean Slate Act, or how are you able to,
So the state's really said that is only for no offending misdemeanor. We talking about felony, we talking about expanders, we talking about something way more expensive.
are you, next question, how do you respond to the concern that automatic record sealing could lead to employees unknowingly hiring individuals with sealed records and sensitive fields like the child care?
Well, if you would listen to the constructive criticism, you heard me say that we're talking about 2 years of misdemeanor, 5 years of felony. So people have already done the crime, they've done the time, and now this is 5 years later, and different to all the people other collateral protection. These are people that have proved themselves and have earned their right and their path to restore citizenship. Everything in this country cannot be a lifetime sentence.
So why did you choose 2 years and 5 years?
Because according to the Bureau of Justice Statistics, people are more likely to be offended within 3 to 5 years. So we gave that news to you to say if these people were able to, if these people were able to overcome those barriers and those hoops and still not be offended, these people should actually have their rights restored because again, these things that we have in this country are funny.
So my next question is this policy only going to be affecting people that are currently incarcerated? What about people who are already out of jail? What about
No, they should definitely have it to where it's retroactive. But people who are already out of prison, they should need to have their records sealed that way.
So how would that sort of process? Like if we implement the active focus plan, does everyone have like a time to out, start 5 years, start 2 years, or how does that look like?
Yeah, I think personally it should start from how long have you been out. But that's something that's going to be a lot of bureaucracy, but that's something that is outside the scope of what we're talking about here.
Can you clarify your point regarding corporates excluding marginalized communities?
Oh, well, when you look at who is totally makes up the majority of the prison population, who's a disproportionately, we are black and marginalized community are disproportionately make the prison population. So when these populations are the ones who sell us food, they're the ones who we gotta pay them for a phone call, we gotta pay them for everything, and not just us, our family, our loved ones, they extract from lower income communities. I don't run to too many people. I'm 20 years in corporation. I haven't run to one person from Calabasas. I haven't run to one person from Harvard.
All right. And then I guess it's just my last question. What rights do you plan to restore after a person has their record sealed? Will this be automatic as well? Like term ownership, voting rights, rights to vote office, social benefits, food stamps.
Well, we already got the right to walk in our family. So that's already something that we can do. However, yes, I think we should have full restoration. Now, we may do some targeted restriction, but that's not the same thing as another percent.
Presenting the negative team's first constructive argument is Adam Lipnot for 7 to 9 minutes.
We stand in negation of the resolution. The U.S. should require the automatic sealing of the criminal records of all offenders, except for those convicted of violent sex crimes. To begin, we would like to define a crucial aspect of the resolution. Rather than the narrow definition of criminal records as government records, criminal records should be defined as records extending beyond government data, including data records published by third parties and private companies that are widely accessible online. Our sole contention is missing the forest for the trees. Subpoint A is the economy. Falsified information has become more widespread and easier to generate in a technologically advanced environment with AI, especially with a $250 billion market for data brokers. Third-party companies every second. U.S. has shifted to an age of surveillance capitalism. Information data focus on private corporations. Considering that web brokering industry has reached $250 billion in 2022 alone, criminal information is decentralized in the United States, and there is large money to be made in collecting and aggregating this information across agencies and places while selling it online, according to Doliak from Stanford. This shift in the market shows no signs of slowing down when data brokers continue to collect data and create false information. With the current job market, private firms contact third-party data brokers for background checks, and the status quo is seeing these effects of sealing criminal records taking place. Employers that aren't concerned with any legal liabilities, but are rather more concerned with other issues like reliability and productivity, are having individual records sealed, overlooks the efforts of individuals with criminal records that have undergone rehabilitative programs, exploding databases with fake dangerous information. These databases are incentivized to create fake information just to supply companies with the bad things they want to hear. Now, this is especially problematic for minorities, as race-based discrimination negatively affects the economy. According to Hubert 20 of Chicago, racism against minorities is a common phenomenon, and discrimination is extremely harmful to targeted minorities. When society discriminates against a specific group, the entire economy suffers. Employers who are biased against minorities harm themselves by missing out on talented individuals, and those effects are sizable and long-lasting. The rise of discrimination-based ideology leads to persistent economic losses, and the effects have documented at least a decade. A single example of discriminatory purge and centuries of race-based discrimination suggest companies in the economy have already paid a high price. They do not want to continue to do so. Now, we have seen the consequences of misinformation being spread in the US as recently as COVID-19, where Asian Americans were facing substantially higher amounts of racism, discrimination, and aggravated assault due to the social scare created from the false perception that Asian American cultures were involved in activities that were likely to perpetuate the COVID-19 disease, according to the Research Center. This inadvertently increases the rates of police violence against these groups, increasing more unjust killings and harms against these communities. Our second subpoint is that it's simply too broad. We don't know what rights do people with sealed records have. In the case of firearms, if a person is convicted of gun violence, they could just have their records sealed, and this would mean they would automatically regain the rights to firearm ownership. In current Indiana state law, there is a judicial process to regain gun ownership rights, according to the Chamber's Law Office article entitled Gun Rights Expungements 2016. Under Indiana's expungement statute, person who successfully petitions a court to expunge or seal a felony conviction can now be found to be a proper person under a federal and state law and can apply for a gun carry permit. If we change this process to be automated, there will be no court petitioning to become a proper person, leaving Americans vulnerable to reoffense from violent gun owners. United States Sentencing Commission article on recidivism of federal firearms offenders, released in 2010, notes that firearm offenders recidivated at a much higher rate. Over 2/3, 69% of firearms offenders were rearrested for a new crime during the 8-year follow-up period, which is compared to half of all other offenders, 45.1% who reoffend. If the records were sealed and offenders were able to repurchase firearms, even notably after the 5-year period, this would lead to more victims of gun violence. This shows that automating record sealing process will lead to preventable gun violence due to recidivism that could be solved through a judicial process review with these facts in mind. The automation of the plan's process is the key problem. Due to the rate of recidivism for certain crimes, just automatically sealing records leaves Americans vulnerable to crimes beyond gun violence, including human trafficking, domestic violence, high-level embezzlement, murder, drug trafficking, child pornography, and multiple other crimes. The plan doesn't take into account the possibility that some offenders pose a particularly and continued risk to a specific field and society as a whole. Because the plan doesn't set clear limits, individuals can find ways to exploit the system by seeking employment in vulnerable sectors, whether it be childcare or healthcare or beyond, or trying to gain positions of trust, knowing that their criminal history would automatically be sealed. Our final subpoint is the court cloud. The affirmative assumes a seamless system, yet automation in criminal record sealing is deeply flawed. The U.S. legal system relies on fragmented databases, many of which contain errors, outdated information, or incomplete records. The Digital Innocence Initiative reports that between 2 and 10% of incarcerated individuals in 2024 were actually innocent. Yet, due to record keeping, misidentification, systemic errors, their records remain tainted. Pennsylvania's Clean state law highlights these failures. When attempting to merge databases, courts struggled with inconsistent record keeping and a lack of standard data entry, making it hard to determine eligibility for sealing. This inefficiency forced manual interventions, overwhelming court information technology teams, and delaying justice for individuals seeking a fresh start. Rather than providing a solution, the affirmative automation is a misleading claim. When data gaps exist, individuals must manually apply for sealing, contradicting the promise of an automatic system. The impact is errors in data systems disproportionately affect marginalized communities. Faulty criminal records can create a false perception of threat, increasing racial profiling, police violence, unjust legal consequences for affected groups. Sealing systems that fail to address underlying data issues worsens the problem. Courts become overwhelmed, clogging legal processes and diverting resources from addressing wrongful convictions to actual criminal justice reform. The strains on the legal system harming those who need relief. The affirmative plan not only fails to solve, but actively exacerbates these harms by creating a false sense of security while leaving marginalized communities at even greater risk. Now, as for the plan that we propose, to address the issue of employment discrimination and to help ex-offenders the best, the federal government should, 1, implement the use of federal certificates of rehabilitation, and 2, increase employer tax incentives to hire these ex-offenders. Rather than pursuing automatic sealing of criminal records, the federal government can issue certificates of rehabilitation known as CORs. A COR places a prior conviction in a more favorable light and reveals that an ex-offender has not committed any further offenses. Moreover, some states have already implemented COR programs of their own and can also serve as additional models to fellow states. In New York, an ex-offender can be eligible for one of 2 certificates. A certificate of relief, opens misdemeanors and first-time felony offenders, and a certificate of good conduct open to offenders with more than 1 felony conviction. Both forms of certificate relieve eligible person of any forfeiture or disability, and remove any barrier to employment that is automatically imposed by law by reason of conviction. These certificates are actual documents that may alleviate some of the negative consequences of a conviction. By providing evidence to an employer or licensing agency, an ex-offender has been rehabilitated. These COR programs are on the rise not only in New York, but if you can bring them across the country, this is a much better system for allowing prisoners to get the help they need once they're out in the world. Thus, we urge a negative ballot. Thank you.
Providing a cross-examination for the affirmative team for 1 to 3 minutes is Dana Beck.
The team know what the citizens rate for someone who's been out of prison for 5 years.
For 5 years, I do not know precisely. However, our evidence states that 45.1% recidivism rate for most crimes applies, but for gun violence, it can be up to 70%.
You know the actor Robert Downey Jr.
I am familiar because I am.
You know who Mark Wahlberg is.
I am.
Are you aware that they have been in prison?
They have, correct.
Did they committed gun crimes after they got out of prison?
Not to my knowledge.
With your plan, what would stop prosecutors and judges from picking and choosing who they want to give these rights back to? Because I didn't hear you say it was mandatory.
Sure. So the key issue is that if you just give it out to anyone, this is potentially allowing dangerous criminals who could be working in spaces that are very vulnerable, like child parent healthcare. It's important that it's true that courts must exercise some level of judgment. However, this judgment is more beneficial than just allowing everyone to have complete, unrestricted access to potentially weapons or to demographics to which they can harm. This ultimately is going, even if it could lead to consequences for the prisoners, it is going to lead to much greater consequences for innocent people.
So nothing is stopping you from picking and choosing. Right?
It's a federal, it can be done by a jury, it can be done by a group of judges. There is a system in place.
Lastly, do you believe ultimately that a person can change and not commit further crime?
I do believe a person can change. However, There are instances in which it is difficult for a person to be reformed under their circumstances, whether they're suffered from a difficult childhood or potential mental illnesses. It can be difficult to fully determine. I think it's necessary to have human intervention rather than an automatic system that can easily produce errors and lead to dangerous results. Even if Robert Downey Jr. was able to go on to be Iron Man, that wasn't a guarantee. He could have likely sold drugs to another person, which could have perpetuated further.
So, what's your plan to react off this?
React off of ifs? Not necessarily. We are including our fair judgment. We are evaluating what could potentially happen based on past records.
Great answers. Presenting the negatives first rebuttal speech for 4 to 6 minutes is Jeremy King.
As negation, we stand still firmly in our belief of the negation of the resolution that the U.S. should require the automatic sealing of the criminal records for all offenders, except for those convicted of violent sex crime. First off, I'll be going into on case, going directly against what they were saying. So specifically, first off, in their first constructive argument, they talked a lot about the framework of justice. They framed this whole round about preserving justice. We are providing justice for these marginalized communities. And as negation, we could not agree more. This is the value that we want to propose. We want to affirm in this round. This is what we are arguing for. However, as in negation, we have proof with our 3 off subpoints that we have proven that the value of justice is rather not being upheld in what the affirmative is trying to say. Passing the plan of automatic sealing does not provide the sense of justice, does not provide the sense of justice that is needed for these marginal communities that have been wronged. Going on to this first. First off, talking about criminal records and limited rights. And we've extended on this on our first subpoint under the economy. Sealing records alone is not enough for solving the injustice that they face. The collateral sanctions that they face is not enough. And the reason that we've proven this is through our cards that we read, the longest in 20, that information, even if it is privatized, like specifically through automatic sealing, there will be industries like the industry we mentioned, data broking, with a $250 billion estimate in 2022 alone that is estimated to only grow as technology advances more. This industry will only grow stronger as the privatization of these public records, the sealing of these records is what leads to these companies thriving. They thrive off the generation of malinformation. They generate malinformation that is not only harmful, it is a misinterpretation, misrepresentation of these marginalized communities. That is the harm that is being inadvertently created from passing the plan in this. They talk about this. It forces people into desperate corners, and we agree. But also, because you are sealing these records, because you are sealing the records, these data companies, because they're creating false information. This false information creates a false perception of these already marginalized communities that is already being negatively affected by these social stigmas that exist. And having data broking companies that are producing false information that they can sell to these private enterprises, whether it be private employers or housing industry, whether they're trying to get information on individuals, especially from marginal communities. These data brokers have a massive value, $250 billion, may I remind you, to profit off of. So sealing is not enough. And especially individuals in marginalized communities, they would feel that same exact feeling that the affirmation is talking about, that current individuals who have been incriminated and are currently suffering from. They suffer the same effects, if not more, as our evidence read in Huber 20, that the creation of these data will completely will shock the economy, as it not only you are taking away job opportunities from marginalized communities, because without a public criminal record, without public proof of rehabilitation, a certificate of this, there is no basis for employers or housing owners to judge based off aside from race. And there's already a strong social stigma problem rooted in society. And if we were to take away and have automatic sealing put in place, it would leave these employers, it would leave these people in charge of housing with nothing else to base their research off of, rather than either false information or rather making a race-based judgment, which is significantly shown proof that it is consequential and causes shock to the economy. And expanding on this more, on shocks to the economy, the impacts it creates. Because you are sealing these records, they don't have information. Even bank loans, take for example, small businesses, individuals that are people of color that wanted to start their own small business, provide back for their communities. They are 2 times less likely to get a loan as compared to a white individual that is trying to find a loan, because these banks are making race-based justifications for the decisions rather than basing it off forms of like certificates of rehabilitation, forms that prove that actual change. They ask in process, do we believe in change? Yes, I firmly believe that people can change. I believe that serving their time is enough for them to change. However, the problem is not that my belief is enough to change the systematic problem of this world. The systematic problem of this world is rooted further in the system, and that is through public perception of these criminals already. And it doesn't matter what I perceive it as. That is why we are arguing for the counterplan. That is why we are arguing for negation of a counterplan. To address the issue of employment discrimination against ex-offenders, the federal government should, 1, implement the use of federal certificates of rehabilitation, and 2, increase employer tax incentives to hire offenders. Rather than pursuing automatic sealing of criminal records, the federal government can issue certificates of rehabilitation. These records act as physical proofs of that not only does it remove the social stigmatization, but also removes any legal concerns that employers or housing people may have on them being reliable, them being productive in the workplace. It eliminates any of those social stigmas that was once created. Having that certificate, and significant studies have shown proof that these certificates alone have significantly raised the chances of people with past criminal records, say for example, getting approval for housing or getting approved for a job. Next, we talk about things like housing support. Sealing inadvertently results in more racial discrimination, like already discussed about in my evidence that I read from the Huber 20 card and the Lakeson 21 card that we talked about in our first constructive argument. Next, they talk about how introducing automatic sealing would hurt corporate profits, but we also explicitly state that corporate profiting is already profiting off these third-party websites that are producing misinformation, that is producing dangerous misinformation, that mislabels, that creates false perceptions of marginalized communities, ultimately creating more harm. So all of their arguments saying that sealing souls, we have shown in our 3 sub-contentions in the economy that it's too broad. It doesn't cover all the wide scopes of crimes, and also in the court blocking, how it could block our legal system. It is all ineffective. And if we are weighing on a round and a value of justice, the only correct ballot today is for the negation and not the affirmation.
Affirmative team's first rebuttal, Noel Cole, for 4 to 6 minutes.
Good afternoon, judges. I'm going to slow it down a little bit. I'm a little older, so I'm not going to be able to talk as fast as everybody else in front of me. First off, let's talk about earning something. I would like to basically say our group has done a lot of thought and a lot of integrity looking into this. If you tell me I only need documentation to be a good person in the federal government, then man, make me a senator, because I can produce documents like you wouldn't be. But the truth of it is they're relying on something that they've lost because their generation has lost it. Looking somebody in the eye and determining after 5 years of serving a 25-year sentence that they can be a citizen again. I want you to think wholeheartedly about what we face when we leave here. We face invisible bars and invisible fences. They want to talk about all this and all that, but the truth of it is we're second-class citizens. You want to expunge things. You want to let AI take things away. What we want to do is prove, not be given, prove that within 5 years of a violent crime, I have a violent crime. I can speak about this. I will do my time, 5 years. After that 5 years, I want to promise from every one of you that when the time comes, you're going to let me be a citizen again. If not, don't lie. Don't lie to me about anything. A recent article in 2024 from OhioCapital.com, 2024 said 4 things are going to be punished on us when we leave. Recidivism. They're going to want us to, because we're just numbers, because we're part of a business plan. I worked my whole life. I know about a business plan. I know how to make money. You're going to tell me no. Income equality. I'm going to keep you poor. I'm going to keep you challenged. Now, the thing about it is, I'm a white guy. If y'all didn't know that, I'm a white guy, right here, white. I don't know anything about marginalized. That's why they keep me on this team. The truth of it is, there are marginalized people. I don't know them, but I love these guys here, and I can see what they're about ready to be faced with. When I leave, I'm going to play golf. These guys have to support their families. You're locking them out of the system, but you're saying, hey, it's all about the corporates. It's all about protecting. I'm a Republican, by the way. I love when we talk about big subjects like gun control. That guy's going to get a gun and he's going to shoot somebody. Fact of it is, ladies and gentlemen, you got to go to the sheriff's department. They're still going to know. You can't take everything away. The truth of it is, these are people who have never been in the adult world yet. They put their toe in it. I'm proud of all of them for being in college, but no offense, college is kind of like going to Disneyland. I'm in prison. Every man at this table has documentation proving they're rehabilitated. As a matter of fact, this fine gentleman right here is leaving in a couple of months. Let's give him a chance after 20 years in prison to succeed in life. He has a college degree. He didn't have to do this, ladies and gentlemen. I know people that have been here for 15 years, they just play softball. But these people are telling us they're going to expunge their record, and then they're going to give us a certificate from the government. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be real honest with you about this. I'm 48 years old. I didn't come to prison. I mean, I'm 51. At 48, I decided to commit my first crime. I've gotten a lot of certificates from the government, and not a damn one of them mean anything. All they did was usually is I paid taxes to get it, or I bribed somebody to get it. We're talking about a system after we do our time, which, by the way, is documented every day. We have 4 counts. 2 of them we have to stand for now. We have classes we take. We elect to take them. They elect to take them. So after all of that, and let's forget about the fantasy land of AI. Let's go back to the invisible bars and the invisible fences that we face. Work with us on this. If you want to give us a certificate from the federal government after 5 years, groovy. We'll put it up on the wall, show everybody that the government thinks good for 5 years. But in truth, we're going to show you that we're good for 5 years. And at the end of that, make us citizens. Make us justified. If not, don't lie to us. Keep us where we're at. We'll come back. And we'll keep coming back. But we're going to have a lot of fun before you catch us. Because if you're telling us we can never be anything, then when you do stick the cat in the corner, somebody does get stretched. In truth, they talk about gun violence. I love that. I'm a Republican. Love it. You're not going to keep people from getting guns. It's never going to happen. And all of this, guys, look at it like this. Our program takes the United States, takes us from working hard to a completion date, 5 years. 2 years, if we just got a misdemeanor. 5 years, we work hard. Do you think we're going to give up another 20 years after 5 years to prove to you that we cared, that we're back? Give us to our families. And this is the last thing I'm going to leave you with. Any law that degrades a human personality is unjust. All segregation, that's what you're doing to us, is unjust. It gives a segregator a false sense of superiority and a segregated a false sense of inferiority.
Now reached the halfway point of the debate, leading us in the opening to the second round by presenting the negative team's second constructive argument for 6 to 8 minutes. Jay, go.
I want to start the speech with a certain framing. A framing of they miss the forest for a single tree. In this debate, they talk a lot about how one bill that does very little to generally impact the economy, especially with regards to prisoners who've been released, is going to fix the whole issue. The issue exists in a much broader sense than what they claim it is. I'm gonna first get into economy. As we talked about, falsified info has become more commonly spread. We talked about AI, but it isn't necessarily an AI fix everything. Where we talk about how AI makes things worse and how it makes more falsified info spread. In regards to incarcerated information, as Jennifer Dolok said, there's someone who has a PhD in economics at Stanford, explains there's big money to be made from collecting and aggregating this data across agencies, places, and places, and selling it. What this plan does is it blocks access to much of this data. These corporations, they want their money. At the end of the day, that's just how they operate. As a result, and something that we talked about in our Langston 2021 evidence, stealing criminal records incentivizes private collection of criminal records. What this does is essentially it incentivizes people to spread information that will be less reliable and stuff gained from the internet, stuff that is just honestly much less reliable in comparison to stuff that's released from the courts. As we've explained in our Langston 2020 evidence, this will lead to large impacts, especially with regards to minority communities. And overall, what this will do is this will hurt the economy, and it will hurt these marginalized communities. With regards to the racial wealth gap, what this does is reduces the probability of employment for marginalized individuals, and it widens the racial wealth gap. As a result, in a 2019 McKinsey report, a multinational strategy and management consulting firm, racial wealth gaps constrains the economy, costing between 1.5 and $1 trillion between 2019 and 2028. Closing this gap would boost the economy, boost the GDP by 4 to 6%. Onto our court blog. Argument. So they make a lot of arguments with regard to stuff that we said. They talk about how like 5 years isn't enough. As we've talked about, an estimated 68% of released prisoners were arrested within 3 years, 79% within 6 years, and 83% within 9 years. Oftentimes, when people are released after 5 years, that doesn't mean that they'll never get arrested again. 5 years isn't a good enough time frame, as we've talked about. And further into the court log stuff, 2 to 10% of incarcerated people were wrongfully incarcerated. Due to this data being mishandled, when you automate the sealing of courts, you have to come together. As we've seen with the Pennsylvania, this leads to a lot of mishandled data. If we're talking about 2 to 10% with the current system, imagine how much errors that will happen when this is massively expanded to in all honesty, in an immediate fashion, one that these courts are just not prepared for. As we just talked about, this will lead to a lot of mishandled data as courts store data differently. This is important to two things. This overburdens all court IT personnel. Don't have the structure to sustain a massive uptick. Their claim of automation falls through as people who have too much data missing or unreported or lost have to apply manually. It's not as easy as they claim. This implementation process is just not something that we can, instantly have working up and running perfectly. With regards to this being too broad, one thing that is just very obvious is, as we've talked about, felons will have access to guns. Felons who have committed gun crimes and will have access to guns. We talked about the 69% recidivism rate. I heard that one of the debaters is a conservative, and he cares about this stuff, but that doesn't really matter when we're talking about the day-to-day impacts that can come from a massive uptick in gun violence. In fact, it seems that he would be one to agree that an uptick in gun violence wouldn't be good. And this would just massively skyrocket gun violence. Also, what this allows for people who have used CP, because CP is not a violent sex crime, to be in communities and not have their presence as well known, to be around people that they shouldn't be. Same with human trafficking. Human trafficking is not a violent sex crime. Therefore, these people would be able to become, get into communities that they probably wouldn't have access to, and people who don't know anything about their records as a result. And especially with someone who, let's say I'm a woman who's going into a relationship with someone, and I don't know that this person has a domestic violence record because this was sealed. What if, as a consequence, I am, and this is obviously a higher statistic, as a consequence of this. With regards to our counterplan, our evidence, and specifically Judge Gleason, has concluded that the COR can significantly eliminate the collateral effects of a criminal record by emitting a powerful signal that the same system that found a person deserving of punishment has now found that individual fit to fully rejoin the community, which is much better than just automation. Employers might find a federal certificate of rehabilitation program much more credible than individual state certificate plans. Therefore, programs gain mass recognition due to unified national reach of a federal program that could have. There was also talk about how certificates don't matter. Well, if certificates, data, and federal documents don't matter, then why are you so interested in having them sealed? They do matter. At the end of the day, they very much do matter. With regards to needing to follow the guidelines, ex-offenders must apply themselves for the COR, but either the court or the probation office must notify the offender to the existence of the program. I just want to end this on a note of pointing out that with them focusing on one individual thing, they focus on one individual thing that doesn't encapsulate or benefit incarcerated people. They miss the whole course. They miss the complex dynamics that are at play. They miss the complex dynamics that interweave the imprisoned community and unprisoned populace. That's my comment.
The affirmative team's second constructive argument for 6 to 8 minutes is Tyler Jones.
Judges, I ask you to picture an 18-year-old working full-time, helping his mother and siblings. In fact, I can actually remember an 18-year-old who committed a crime as a juvenile, served the sentence, and put forth the effort to change his life. When the opportunity presented itself, this young man took full advantage. Starting at the bottom level of a recycle company called Waste Management, this young man progressed quickly in the job, and his boss took a liking to him. His boss knew he had committed a crime as a juvenile and told this young man that it wouldn't be an issue when it came time to hire him in as a full-time employee. New management took the job site, and this young man was told that he could not continue at the job due to his criminal history. How do I know this story so well? Because you are looking at that young man. And who is to say that if I was not able to be legally discriminated against for a crime that I committed as a juvenile, that I would be standing in front of you today? And as I stand in front of you today, understand that I am fully aware that I have made mistakes. But I ask those to raise their hand that have never done the same. The difference between our mistakes, yours were forgotten, but mine will last a lifetime. Obstacles at every corner, every turn reminded me that no matter how hard I work, it will never be good enough, because I haven't always been perfect. The affirmative team believes that the United States should require the automatic sealing of the criminal records for all offenders except for those convicted of violent sex crimes. This bill needs to be enacted because the non-sealing of these records allows the legal discrimination of those who committed an offense. And this legal discrimination leads to legal oppression. How? Collateral consequences inevitably forces those who committed a crime to become a second-class citizen, socially, politically, or economically deprived. You become less of a person, stripped of your rights for only being a person. Like my teammate said, retribution is not accountability. They are not the same. But let me explain how it is a societal wrong. You become a second-class citizen when you are no longer given the same rights or treatment as the rest of the people in society. According to Policy Matters Ohio, a typical Ohioan out of work after serving a felony conviction, has lost an estimated $36,479 in wages. And total wages lost across the state has reached an estimated $3.4 billion. So not only do these people have to start over after serving their sentence, but they will most likely miss out on the very money needed to establish themselves and their family, forced into working entry-level jobs for a minute pay. See, this is how second-class citizenship works. And in the words of Malcolm X, second-class citizenship is nothing but 20th century slavery. The very people who instituted these collateral consequences are obviously standing at the top of our country economically. And it is impossible to stand on top of anything without putting something in place to stand on. Every action has a consequence, good or bad. When you break the law, you deserve to be punished. But do we deserve to be oppressed? Unjust or cruel exercise of authority or power. This is oppression, according to the Merriam-Webster's dictionary. The criminal justice system sits in place for justice and rehabilitation. But after I finish serving my sentence, in which I have become educated and learned trades to successfully plant me into society, it will mean nothing. Let me give you an example. According to lawsmodelschool.org, a man named Gene Mays was convicted of drug felonies in 1988 and 1994. He applied to be an electrician with the city of Cincinnati in 2007. In his application, he disclosed his convictions and provided overwhelming evidence of his rehabilitation, remaining drug-free for over a decade, steady work history, completion of a 5-year electrician apprenticeship diploma with the local union in 2006, graduating first in his class, and received an excellent rating by his supervisors in all 10 categories in the apprenticeship. Despite all of this, the Cincinnati Civil Service Commission and the Metropolitan Sewer District denied him employment based on his drug felonies, which were 13 and 19 years old, citing the city's blanket ban on hiring former criminal offenders. Although the city initially offered him the position, they removed him from their list of eligible workers. There was never even an absolute ban, and the city ended up hiring an electrician who didn't even pass the civil exam. This is public safety. Collateral consequences creates an unstable social safety net, and then the chain reaction begins. Let me tell you how. According to the Brennan Center for Justice, beginning in the 1980s, Congress passed and public housing implemented one state, one strike, a year out rules providing for the eviction of people who become involved in criminal activity, and permanently excluding people convicted of certain crimes. Job and housing insecurity obviously then creates the need to lean on government assistance. But also according to the Brennan Center for Justice, since 1996, people convicted of certain crimes have been ineligible for government assistance through the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families and the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, also known as STAP, thus creating a structural cycle of poverty. This is why we propose, once a person has gone 2 years for misdemeanors or 5 years for felonies without reoffending, the records will be automatically sealed, eliminating any prosecutorial discretion. After the 2 or 5 years, it is imperative to those with convictions that these records be sealed, because if not, it is a hindrance to their growth. These records are simply information. And if it's been 2 or 5 years with proven rehabilitation, I agree, specific situations merit specific information. But if someone served 2 years at 18 years old, where is it relevant now at 35, applying for a construction job that they stole a car at 18? What impact does this information have on the company looking to hire them? What is more relevant? What someone did 10 or 20 years ago, or what someone has been doing for the past 5 or 10 years, working hard, protecting their family, proving resilience, and being a pillar in their community? Does this mean nothing? What I'm really saying is that the elimination of this information limits the amount of discrimination against those who've committed an offense. What does this look like? Equal opportunity and the protection of rights. Society does not want us to be criminals. They don't want us to break the law. Society does need to give us the opportunity and space to grow. This will create stronger communities economically. And instead of children being hungry, undereducated, poverty-stricken, and watching the adults in their life struggle, allow them to see that it is okay to not be perfect. And if they work hard enough, they can overcome any mistake. Allow them to see that they will have the opportunity to reach success and greatness. Allow them to see that these mistakes should not define them, but motivate them. I hope it is clear. We are not asking for the automatic benefit of doubt, but we are asking for an opportunity to prove ourselves. Collateral consequences leaves us handcuffed long after our imprisonment. Please allow us the opportunity to not have our past used as a hindrance, but as fuel for prosperity. Thank you.
Presenting the affirmative team's second rebuttal for 3 to 5 minutes is Talib Abdul Kadir.
So this debate is about limiting the harms of collateral sanctions. Really, it's about limiting the harms of legal discrimination, right? And I want to say this, understand this. This is a choice, right? It's a choice, right? So legalese, they have a concept called of a poison tree, right? So the fruit of a poison tree says that the fruit itself cannot be separated from the tree that is poison. So we'll take it a step further, right? Let's say the fruit of a poison seed. Now let's look at the fruit of legal discrimination that comes from the tree of the criminal justice system. But this criminal justice system was planted by a seed of the slave, the soil of which is the very blood of my ancestors. The subjugation of my ancestors is in this very soil. So we're talking about the seeds of a poison tree, right? So the first sign, the first usage of collateral sanctions happened back in the nadir period, after the Reconstruction period, right? So you had the nadir period, and the very first collateral sanction was the Black Code, where the express purpose of these laws was to strip the Black people of their enfranchisement, was to put them in a second-class citizenship. The same exact thing that collateral sanctions does now, put us in the second-class citizenship, right? The second reiteration of collateral sanctions happened in around 1967 and 1968 in California, when Ronald Reagan decided that he wanted, after the Black Panthers marched on Sacramento with their guns, bearing their right to bear arms, Second Amendment right, Ronald Reagan wanted to take the guns out of Black people's hands and keep them in other people's hands. So they passed a law barring people from having guns if you've been convicted of a felony, right? So the express purpose of the law was to take the guns out of some people's hands and keep them in other people's hands, right? Discrimination. So what we're saying is we're trying to address not in discrimination, because we can't. Discrimination is a personal thing. I personally choose to discriminate against people. So I can't stop this, but I can limit the information, the spread of this information, right? So my young opponents want us to say, well, let's do nothing, right? Or let's do their counterclaim, saying that they want to talk about misinformation. Misinformation is happening. I'm telling you, it's happening, right? If we do nothing, if we do something, it's not limit misinformation to spread. It's happening right now, right? And my young opponents want to address, I want to say that discrimination, discretion is discrimination. So they say do not do it automatically, right? Well, the only way that you could limit the rights of some people, right, and expand the rights of other people is through a thing called discretion. Someone has to sit in place to decide who gets what. So we don't eliminate this discretion, not eliminate discrimination. Because I'm here to tell you, I don't care what your job is. You take you to your job. If I'm a judge and I have biases, whether I admit them or not, I take me into my job. If I am a juror, like my young opponent said, let's do the jury thing. If I take me as a juror into the jury room, I take me there, right? I don't leave me out and then bring me the juror in. No, I bring all my thoughts, all my discriminations, all my misconceptions, all my biases in there with me, and I use these biases in my discretion or my discrimination. So we want to limit these things. We want to eliminate these things, right? And we're not going to do that with one bid, right? We're not going to limit them to one bid, but we will address the situation. And this is all we're talking about doing. We want to begin addressing the situation to begin eliminating the discretion and the discrimination that we're facing. Because I'm telling you, right now, the status quo, we are doing nothing. Nothing at all. Not a little. And if my opponents had their way, not a lot, right? So we're telling you that our plan is right, and you should adopt our plan because I didn't hear much from the other plan. And I got a lot written down, but I don't have a lot of time to get into it, so. I'm done. Yeah.
Presenting the negative change spectrum level for 3 to 5 minutes is vital PR. Okay, I want to start by framing this around the idea that a true clean slate can never exist in the current world. We can't prevent a cat from being backed into the corner when the thing that's backing it into the corner is not just the federal laws that exist, but the entire society that surrounds it. The social media that cements prisoners' mugshots online, the entire criminal records that's displayed through third parties across the entire internet. You cannot prevent a cat from being backed up into a corner just by enacting the law. This would require an entire societal change, and just implementing one little plan to prevent criminal records from being shown ignores all of the records that are already elsewhere around the entire world. In regard to our first point of the economy, the widespread generation of false information has become more prevalent due to these recent technological advancements. The $250 billion data broker market has contributed to the spread of this misinformation. And without adequate criminal records saying exactly what crime has been committed, how are employers, when they're searching for jobs, supposed to know what's true and what's not? In the age of the internet, we all know how quickly misinformation spread. And without an accurate data representation federally, more misrepresentation, more racial profiling will exist, as that's the first thing they will see is this false information that will depict criminals with the wrong background and with the wrong data about their rehabilitation. This issue is only exacerbated by the automatic sealing of criminal records, which can distort an individual's history. The effects of false information is particularly evident among marginalized groups, as we gave the example of during COVID-19, where Asian Americans face increased discrimination and violence due to false perceptions of the virus. This is a very modern day issue. Maybe in the past, there wasn't such a widespread media attention. We could just fix the law, but we can't. And in this modern world, your plan is not effective to fix the criminal background, and the criminal record does not just exist within the law. Additionally, this is just far too broad. People with sealed records can regain certain rights, including like voting, traveling. But I want to extend on the importance of full discretion in sensitive fields. One crime that, like Jay touched on a little bit earlier, was like child pornography. I don't have kids, but I sure as hell know some of you guys have kids. I know you told me you have 3 kids, you have a daughter, right? Would you want your daughter and her children and your grandchildren being taken care of in a daycare in which somebody convicted of having child pornography was employed there? I sure as hell wouldn't want my kid subjected to that matter. We don't know like a person's past due to the prison system is simply not effective at rehabilitating individuals. It does not address the root causes of the issues, and therefore we shouldn't expect people to be adequately rehabilitated after entering the prison system. You were telling me you've been in here a couple times. I'm sure many of you, this isn't your first time being back in prison. We have seen prison is not effective at adequately rehabilitating individuals. So why should I expect an individual to be entirely safe after being in our broken system? And the only way to solve this is through a upheaval of the entire system, not just one facet of the entire cog machine. And I just, in response to the Black codes in history, we agree. We agree with everything you said, that this is an entire systematic racial discrimination problem. You can't solve a systematic problem by starting from the top. You have to start from the very bottom. You're addressing the symptoms and not the causes of the issue. The alternative solution that we provided through providing certificates gives us an actual way to change the mindsets and perceptions of people who were incarcerated. We've seen that employers, once they start learning that incarcerated individuals can be good employers through these certificates, which give them actual proof that they're going to be good employees, public perception towards incarcerated individuals will actually start to change. That is the true solution, not providing, just removing criminal records, which actually won't change anything due to the current state of the media. Discretion also does not necessarily equal discrimination. The story of you being like 18 years old and something about discretion could have helped you in that scenario. If a judge would have seen your age or would have been able to look at your specific situation rather than just find that 5 years, you probably didn't even deserve 5 years. You probably deserve 0. Okay, now both teams will present closing remarks for 90 seconds. Beginning with the affirmative teams, Noel Cole. Noel Cole.
No.
Tyler Jones.
All right. Now presenting Dana Mack.
We, the affirmative, have presented a lot of facts, information to you already. So with the little time that I have, I'm not going to try to reiterate all those facts. Instead, I'm going to try to ask a question that I think simplifies our position. But first, I want all of us to picture a person about to be released from prison. I want you to picture this person being released from prison, homeless, but released to your community. Unemployed, released to your community. Now, my question to you is this a situation that is conducive to the public safety of your community? Now, I'm willing to bet the answer to that question is a hard no, right? And this is why we ask you to join with us in demanding that our lawmakers enact this simple policy that we have debated today. Because the collateral sanctions that are in place now, they do nothing but perpetuate homelessness and unemployment for men and women that are trying to prove to society that they have been rehabilitated. Let us simply make it easier to obtain meaningful employment and housing by removing the invisible bars that are collateral sanctions. And with that, Liberation Aloud concludes its arguments for today, and we continue our fight for tomorrow.
We will now hear the negative team's closing remarks for 90 seconds from Sai, Vishnu Shree, Aaron Mai, Mita 3. Reality is clear. Surveillance capitalism is blooming. Companies profit from collecting and fabricating false information, creating a system where individuals are misrepresented and their opportunities are unfairly limited. Automatic sealing makes this work. Employers turn to third-party databases to fill in the gap with false, unverified data. This does not protect. It creates a more dangerous, inaccurate system that undermines rehabilitation. And the harms extend past unemployment. False information fuels discrimination and violence. COVID-19 is a great example. Misinformation about Asian Americans increased racism, violence, and unjust policing. Bad data spreading causes us bad data harms the marginalized communities the most. The affirmative does not solve the problem, it deepens it. We must reject the policies that let misinformation thrive. Now, the affirmative team talks a lot about legal discrimination, but makes no steps to solve it. They are focusing on the trees and ignoring the forest. The counterplan is the only way to change how people perceive the incarcerated people. The judge is a great example. He says that only when the courts give them back the rights that they took is the only way, people have concrete confirmation that they can be back to society. We also improve jobs and incentivize them to employ them, which is the only way that we can solve is through the counter plan, as we're the only method to solve from the bottom up instead of top down. Thank you. Thank you. That was such an incredible debate. I'd like to give a round of applause to you. Another round of applause for this. Okay, and now we will give the time to the judges to tally up their points, and in that time, I will open the floor for each member of the teams to give a brief introduction to themselves and what this experience has meant to them. So we can begin with Liberation Aloud.
Mayor Montez Hatcher. I'm the one who founded this club a few years ago. And just being able to come up here and do this right before I'm about to leave in a few months, especially with all my guys who've been here with me from day one, it means everything. But I do want to say something that I appreciate you guys coming out for the second time today. No matter how I tell y'all, I just thank you all. But oh my God, is that these people, this team, they drive all these hours to get here, and we can't even get a debate in our own state. Ohio State. What's the other one? Bowling Green. Like, where y'all at? Can we, the only thing we need, only thing we be asking for is opportunity. Say, yeah. Whoever got a debate team in Ohio, if you're watching this, could you please come give Liberation Loud a shot? And since I'm up here, I'm gonna call the ultimate shot, which is, because I know that y'all participate in debating people from the National Quiz Debate League. Harvard. What's going on? I want to call for the top. Oh, Wake Forest too. But Harvard, we want y'all bad, brothers. We want y'all bad. And I want to bring up some other people. And we got people that y'all even able to see. We gonna pick them up later. But come on, Coles, Tom T-Wall. Come on, everybody, come on up, yo. Come on, yo. Let's do it. Yeah, this is my last debate here. Come on, we gotta do it. Come on.
My name is Tyler Jones. I'm 26. I've been incarcerated since I was 19. Just being able to be a part of this experience, stepping out of the norm, you know what I mean? I've grown a lot since my first first being incarcerated. I actually got invited to the team from arguing with my dude all day on the block. So, but great conditions. And I appreciate you guys for coming out, you know what I'm saying, giving us the experience. Appreciate Daniel for helping us out and everybody that put it together. You know what I'm saying?
My name's Noah Coles. I'm 51. I'm the reserve, totally conservative Republican of the bunch. I'd like to say that the wisdom I've gained from being a part of this is it's overwhelming, especially getting to meet young college kids like this who are fighting for things that are useful. I can honestly say that I lived a blind life on some of the things that they go through, like I brought off in my speech. I never suffered for anything. I never not wanted for anything. I'm here on my own because it's my fault that I'm here. But the one thing I've learned is to be a better person while I'm in here, and I owe it to these guys.
Ben Matthews, I'm right here in Mansfield, Ohio. This experience has been great for me. It gives us a chance to open our mind up and think about other things instead of being here in prison. I just want to thank college, our layer, our coach Daniel, and the college's coach. Thanks for coming. You could have been anywhere, but you was here with us, debating us. Thanks. That's all.
My name is Bob Turner. I consider myself the elder statesman of this group. It's truly a privilege and an honor for me to be a part of this. Especially want to thank Daniel for making this vision, to bring this vision to the forefront, and giving us all an opportunity to express ourselves and be known to the world. Again, I want to thank you and students and my team right here. We're looking forward for Harvard and who else. Bring it on.
My name is Tommy McClendon. We joined this debate team since day one. I love speaking publicly. Perhaps I wasn't a good public speaker at all. It's made me a better public speaker. And I look forward to betting on the streets and as well, Harvard, Princeton, whoever. I'm looking for whoever. Thank you.
I just joined this debate team and they have helped me be a great debater and a great speaker. Fortunately, I want to do debate against you guys soon, so hopefully you guys come back next year. And I want to thank Dan, Coach Fred, Patrick, and everyone that helped us get here. And thank you, Tess, for creating this club and letting us or be a part of it. Great.
Omar Jackson. And I just recently came to Whistler University. And I heard the announcement for the debate team over the PA system, and I decided to give it a try. Debate and other groups that I have joined addresses my one true fear in life is public speaking. That's something that Toastmasters and debate league is helping me deal with. So I appreciate these guys for embracing me, and I appreciate this experience. Hey, and these next two I'm bringing up, Harvard, Wake Forest, whoever coming in, all the beats of HBCUs too, so Central State, y'all come in and shit. I'm calling all the shots. But these next two, y'all gonna have to deal with them, and I'm telling you, hello, my name is Josh Mask, and I am very excited and happy to be here. Thank you so much, Hoosiers. You gave us a magnificent challenge, and I'm very excited to represent the next generation of the Liberation Aloud team here at Richmond Correctional and the National Prison Debate League. And thank you guys so much for this opportunity. Yeah, we'll see you next time. My name is Chuck Jordan. Haven't had a chance to meet you guys, debate you guys yet, but I appreciate being out here. I appreciate all of the hard work you guys for this rockstar. All you guys do a phenomenal job, and I'm just proud to be a part of the whole organization. I appreciate you coming out, and I appreciate everybody. And I just thank you for the forward, thank you guys on whatever the street wants to wait about, and be your own work. Thank you.
My name is Criteria. I've been debating for, I don't know, a couple of years now, but I would like to thank Indiana Youth for coming out, our coaches, for the Indiana's coach gave me some good advice I'd like to thank Ms. H, Ms. Harrison. I'd like to thank Ms. Allen, thank Mr. Brown over here, all these people that made this thing happen. I guess I'd like to thank the audience out there if y'all was watching, because, you know, appreciate y'all's eyes on our product. You understand me? And no, you said it.
No. I'm sorry.
Oh, all right.
Hi, my name is Adam. I'm from New Jersey, but here representing Indiana. It's been an immense pleasure. It's an opportunity I wouldn't otherwise get to visit a really unique group of individuals who have their own specific circumstances that brought them to where they are. But it really helps to expand my perspective, and I think it makes me a better debater, just understanding that the world is bigger than what I see in the classroom. Anywhere could be a classroom, even a prison if you look back. So I'm very grateful. These men over here, and I'm looking forward to doing it again next year. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jeremy. Yeah, I'm from San Jose, can't say California apparently. So yeah, but I think what's been so great about debate is just that you get to see so much more, you see so much more about the world, learn so much more about it. And I think that's one of the great things that I've gained from debating, especially. I probably would never see myself debating in a prison, thinking 4 years back, but it's definitely been one of the highlights of college so far, and I'm looking forward to next year. So.
My name is Violet. I'm originally from Madison, Wisconsin. Yeah. So like I grew up in this like city suburban landscape of nothing went wrong ever, and I feel like coming to college has really broadened my eyes to like what people besides myself go through. It's made me a much less like selfish person, and meeting new people and hearing all of your stories and like all of the systematic problems that led up to your incarceration and like who you want to be when you get out has like inspired me and made me feel like, you know, I've been so lucky. So, you know, I just thank you.
I'm pretty new to debate. I've never really done debate before. I just started in college. But one thing that I gained was like community and meeting new people. And one reason I really wanted to come here is I wanted to hear a lot about people who are incarcerated. And I know that like a lot of it's exaggerated, and I wanted to empathize and understand those who struggle within the confines of prison. And this is genuinely such a great opportunity to understand and hear other people's stories. And so thank you so much.
So I did this last year, and I have to say, I learned so much. You guys are great English speakers. It really kind of changed my mind on like how debate should be. All of the debating I'm doing is so much more logical, just facts, but thinking your stories into it, me just honestly staring at you, not even writing anything down, just listening. It's so great to just hear your stories, and especially in the debate space. And it really opened my eyes of how debate could be, how to be more, equally. Hopefully I was that compared to my last year. But thank you so much for at least like opening my eyes to that, and of course sharing your story.
Last and mostly least, I'm the director of debate, but primarily I'm a fancy Uber driver for some incredible students on the end. My job at the university is to find how to have high impact educational opportunities. And our students this week are studying for midterms. They have spring break coming up in about 2 weeks. We have a few national tournaments that are occurring soon. But I'll say, bar none, this is one of the best opportunities that they've had this year and the year before. My hope is that, through language being, a fundamental aspect of being human, it's world making. And by, engaging in opportunities of conversation, we can break down walls and instill empathy and understanding. And some of the best speeches that I've seen all year came from this debate, from especially your all side, and hearing stories. And I've watched far too many debates this year. So, I just want to say at the end, to thank those who are part of our debate team at home. The preparation that went into this at late nights in terms of our students getting limited sleep was in collaboration with some students and coaches that aren't here, as well as the institution of Indiana University, especially the O'Neill School of Public and Environmental Affairs, who provides us with significant funding and support, as well as the College of Arts and Sciences in Hamilton Meeker School. While they're studying for midterms, I'll say, whether or not they'll pass their supply and demand curve mathematics exam, I think it was ultimately worth it and likely life-changing in terms of the opportunity you provided us. Thank you for inviting us. We'll be more than happy to come here again in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. While the judges are tallying, are you guys still tallying scores? Okay. If anyone is concluded and would like to make some remarks to the teams from the judges panel, the floor is also open for you folks to address the teams if you'd like to, about what you saw here today. All three judges for folks at home are joining NPDL for the first time, so this was their first NPDL experience, and we'd love to hear what they thought as well.
All right, I'll start off with a couple words, then open the floor to my fellow judges, and then we can finish with the announcement of the decision. How does that sound?
Yeah, I was going to say that sounds great, and Leah our moderator, will present the trophy to the winners you announced. And just before we get to that, because I'll let you guys close it out and I'll get out of the way, I do want to plug NPDL's next event. Is going to be March 16th, so stay tuned for that live stream link up in Maine, where our women's team, Opinionated Mind, will be facing MIT up in Maine on March 16th, and then Harvard. So we'll see how that plays out. Harvard's also going up to Maine at the end of next month, so that'll conclude our season, and we want to find out how this one went. So we're going to turn it over to the judges and let them close us out. Thank you.
All right. Can folks hear us? there? Is this coming through? Yeah, all right, nice. This was a wonderful event. Congratulations to all the speakers. There were some dynamite speeches here. The Liberation Aloud invitation to Ohio State, Wake Forest, and Harvard came through loud and clear. I am an alum of Wake Forest, and I know the Harvard debate coach, so I'm going to personally deliver this invitation, talk it up, talk about how great you guys are. And furthermore, try to persuade them that, for example, the students at Ohio State, this is a great activity to address the collateral sanctions that they have from being locked in Disneyland, right? Because actually getting out and interacting with you and specifically watching the dynamite delivery of these Liberation Aloud speakers, I thought was absolutely educational for the college students. So I hope that more college students get a chance to engage in this kind of debating. Okay, let me pass it over to my fellow judges for any words that they might want to share, and then we'll close it out with the scores and the decision.
I'll go. Okay, well, thanks. First of all, thank you. I'm Joe Pan from Monmouth University. It's really been an honor to be able to judge this round. This is my first time judging in this division, and so we're fortunate enough. My understanding is next October our team will be competing, in this league in Connecticut. So we're really fired up and excited, especially now after seeing this. This I had as a very, very close decision that could have gone either way. So let me just say, thank you again for letting me be a part of this. Congratulations on all of your great work, and please come debate at Monmouth. We'd love to have you, sir.
All right. Hey, I'm Jefferson Yahome. I would like to reiterate my panelists. It was an honor to judge and see how, your minds work. I think this is a beautiful thing. And I'm gonna see what it takes to get my students out here debating. And so, I think everyone, like, I think the emotions are there, the characterizations are there, the logic is there. Y'all are brilliant. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Jefferson. So I think we're ready. Can we get the trophy? I mean, are we ready with this? Okay, so I see it. It's ready. The trophy is ready. So without further ado, in this debate between the Hoosiers from Indiana University and the Liberation Aloud team, the decision is split. Judge Patton scored it 125, 122 for the negative. I scored it a little bit differently. I scored it 109.5 to 93. Affirmative Liberation Aloud. And that brings it all down to Professor Yahome, who scored it 125.5 to 119 for the winner of this excellent debate. On the affirmative side, Liberation Aloud. Let's give it up to them. 2-1 decision. Liberation Aloud wins this debate. Congratulations, everybody. Fantastic job. It was a squeaker. It was a 2-1 decision. The judges were very impressed. I have some comments, I'll send through your coaches. They're mostly like speaking reactions and stuff. So I guess any other words from the judges? Or we're good? No. Okay, we're going to turn it back over. I think we might be done, right? We're going to close this thing down. All right.